I'm wondering, sir, sorry. I think there's some echo going on, so I was wondering. Okay, sir. That other channel was open simultaneously.
Okay.
So I mean, anyone inimical to us is not going to wait for us to put our house in order. So I think if we understand that, on the northern borders, we have an army which is sworn to protect a party. On our western borders, we have an army which has a country. So in both these cases, this synergy in decision making and operational planning and conduct is self-explanatory. Before I go to the next slide, I want to point out something which I will refer to earlier. One is the equality of the four components, which have been arranged left to right as per service seniority. And of course, I have drawn a circle below. We had a motto, victory through jointness. And like I told the Honorable Raksha Mantri in the Combined Commanders Conference, and when he visited me on 2nd January, so if I give each one of my component commanders a piece of paper, I will not get one definition of jointness, a common definition. And somehow, this sense of theaterization evoked an Amygdalian response, flight or flight, something we are losing. I saw this was there across the services. So we decided from this came from a thought. The thought came from our air chief's visit when he had come to us for 3 days, and I'm grateful to him. And we just adopted a new motto: "Together we are stronger," and Sanghe Shakti, as we put it. So, with that to explain, and I'll come to that later, it requires no gainsaying that we have very varied fronts. We have 3,500 kilometers of an undemarcated border to the north, similarly, some undemarcated portions to the west. We have real threats. Not only Pakistan occupied Kashmir has the China Pak economic corridor going down from the Kunjara Pass, as I point out here. So, can you see my cursor moving on your screen,
Yeah, yeah.
Vishant?
No, we can't
Okay,
see, so you'll have to just
okay.
you can't
So, where
see
I've
it.
written
Uh,
POK,
uh,
and on the right
yeah,
bottom in the
you'll have
diagram, I'm explaining
you'll
it,
have to
sir.
describe
So,
the
in the right
POV.
bottom,
Yeah, yeah,
yes, sir. On the right bottom of the slide, you will see a circle which depicts the strategic project of the Chinese, of the Pakistanis, the strategic highway from Skardu to Gilgit, and ostensibly to connect on to Shaksgam so that the China-Pak economic corridor can come down a route which is not frozen in winters. So there is something there. And of course, we have the CPEC projects which are embracing China into Pakistan into a tighter debt trap for the Chinese. Our islands, 836 strategic islands, two-thirds of the way across the ocean, one-third of the distance from the Malay Peninsula, but great strategic import. I hear people talk about, bandy this fancy term, string of pearls. I put it to you,
yeah.
gentlemen. What I've marked in black are the areas of Chinese presence or desired presence. Kaladan project terminates at Sitwe, 105 kilometers from that is Chakfu, from where oil and gas is going to the mainland. You don't pump it against gravity as in Pakistan, but here it's not against gravity. And they've got military developments in areas around them, suffice to say that. So I would just say to those people that a string of pearls is a metaphor, but without the string, I would look at it as pearls waiting for the plucking. China
Yeah,
may say that South China Sea is
I
China's sea.
Ajay,
Sorry, sir.
don't mind. I want to just tell
Please,
here
sir.
to the audience that I have a counter view on this string of pearls. I say actually the Chinese are choked, and there is a choker necklace around it, which is very easily visualized. If you imagine that it has got actually not even four front, it has got eight fronts opposing it, and it is trying to break out of these eight fronts. That it is trying to create this string of pearls. So it is not us who are disadvantaged. It is actually the Chinese who are disadvantaged. I will explain to you later as we go along. But yeah, I just wanted to interject on this point. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry for the.
Sir, thank you, sir. So coming back, it's quite ironical that someone who says that South China Sea is China Sea because कोई किसी मछुआरे की डायरी में हाइनन आइलैंड में किसी ने 9 dash लगा दिए थे and that became your claim. However, we may not say Indian Ocean is India's ocean. However, something which is close to our mainland is definitely well within our area of influence.
Yeah.
I would like to bring out and just draw your attention. 91, the Lookie's policy may have been initiated, but it was given teeth only in 2004 by our present Prime Minister, Act East policy. We saw 2015 Sagar. We saw weak diplomacy, vaccine diplomacy. So we have a lot of interests which are being pursued by the correct people in our neighborhood. Just for orientation, many of the young officers who messaged me and said they would be online, they do hear of the first and second island chains. There's also description of a third and fourth island chain. But between all these, there are six essential gateways in the east-west sea traffic. Andaman Nicobar Island, our southernmost island, is sitting astride the main one, where it's written Malacca, just to the south of Singapore. So
Hmm.
that is where a large majority of the traffic passes through. The
Yeah.
same thing is shown here, where the red lines become more dense, just below the Andaman eclipse. That is the shipping coming out, and these are the sea lanes. And like you brought out, sir, I had also visualized some questions which people may be putting forth. If it's
Yeah.
not broken, why fix it? Do we really need it now? And can we theaterize without a clear higher defense organization or a national security or military strategy? I
Yeah.
think we should not put the cart before the horse. I would let it come towards the end of the discussion. But I'd make
Yes.
3 points or 4 points on the next slide. Would we want our next generation to fight tomorrow's war like we fought yesterday's because that's our comfort zone? There are new technologies and new threats. Do our methods and systems optimally? They may cater for it, but optimally cater for this changing scenario. Decision cycles. Wars are played out more publicly in drawing rooms and social media. We are seeing it in Ukraine. Do we have the luxury of a slower decision cycle than an adversary? I already covered it. An autocratic decision cycle where an army has a country or a army is sworn to protect a political party, that UDA cycle will always be tighter. And of course, financial considerations. We did a study. I would not even like to give the figures. We had a vice chief who gave in parliament some years ago the degree of obsolescence. It was tabled in parliament. Just replacement cost at 40-year-old prices with 10-year extra shelf life is humongous. And we are talking of replacement with previous items procured 40 years ago. If we were to
Yeah.
look at new procurements, the cost would be more and technology, of course, would be better.
Actually,
I
General Ajay, these figures are out already. General Pandey had actually mentioned these figures about obsolescence and the current equipment and the state of the art equipment. It's about 12%, 42%, and 38%. That's the rough.
The replacement costs sir, is something I would not like to mention in public. Uh,
Okay. Okay.
I'd also like to say, sir, that I speak from personal experience of 3 years. Why I want to mention is when we look at the Andaman Nicobar Islands in 1984, it was Fortress Commander Andaman Nicobar with a 2 star. 87, it became a 3 star Fortran. There were some visionary decisions which I put in boxed in red. If I say they were game changers, they were major inflection points. The raising of Andaman Nicobar Command, 2001, after Kargil. 2003, I was coming back from the President's Fleet Review, sir, last year, 21st of February, from Vishakhapatnam. And in the lounge, I won't take names again, there was a retired naval chief who was sitting there. And he was narrating an interesting anecdote. He says, the army is very efficient. And one morning I saw the ADCs called flags in the Navy. He says, I suddenly told my flags, two motorcycle outriders came in. I was having breakfast and I rung up my flags. What's this? He says, sir, you don't know you're becoming the chief. The chief is being sworn in as CDS. And quickly get ready, sir, you have to come. At 8 o'clock, I believe, in the evening, the Prime Minister passed the order for a CDS in 2003. And I see General Dushyant smiling because he knows far more than me on this. And how, as a consequence of this getting rescinded at 2:30 in the morning because a particular services vice chief went and convinced two senior leaders of the opposition who woke up the Prime Minister at 2 in the morning, as per this retired chief. And this later order, which was passed at 2 in the morning, was not known to rescind the appointment of the CDS next morning. I believe General Dushan told me he can shed more light on it. That when
Yeah.
the then Raksha
Basically,
Mantri Major Jaswant came back, he said, "All right," he formed the CDS and IDS and the CISC. But the
yes.
next revolutionary decision, sir, after 14 Saal Banbas, was merging of lands of Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard in 2019 at Andaman Nicobar Command. And I think I was in MO that time, and hats off to General Rawat. There was someone presenting to him that, sir, Navy wants 40 acres for an ammunition dump, and we've asked for an acre in Bombay. They've not been giving it for 10 years. We also won't give this. And he was so angry. He said, give it immediately. इसी वजह से हम आगे नहीं बढ़ रहे. And then he asked for a meeting with the Honorable Raksha Mantri, and this order got passed. And of course, the 2000 order creation of CDS. I think these are all game changing orders. And We are, like I said, at an inflection point.
Yes.
Before I come to the next slide, I'd like to mention I have been there, second longest serving Sincan, and I did request the Raksha Mantri 13 months before retirement that I'd like, with his permission, to continue to serve till the end there, which I got in writing confirming a month later. I have seen all three services, and I think I never went on any temporary duty to the army because after 40 years or 38 years, if one has to go to the army and still learn more, then there's something wrong. However, in my interaction with the Navy and the Air Force in their respective regional commands, I had a sense that there was a party line which was resisting. It's my view, sir, and I'd like to qualify it right in the beginning, but I will give you some examples which can exemplify it. And then there was 9 months of no CDS. And fortunately, under General Chauhan, he was my DGMO, and whose sincerity and professionalism I have no doubt. I can see this momentum pick up again. So this change, which is much required, and we heard the CDS speak to us on 28th of January at the June at the USI.
Yeah.
I'd also like to say, sir, that we are fortunate. In many countries, the services are convincing the political leadership of the need. In our case, it's the Honorable Prime Minister. I've heard him twice in Combined Commanders Conference, and we've read about his directions earlier, who's telling us that please do the right thing for the right reason, and for 5 years we are not finding the will to do it.
But Ajay,
And,
let me
sir,
share with you that any kind of change as far as the armed forces are concerned, not only in India but across the board, all over the world, comes from the top only. And I think we are going through the same story what the Americans went through. I'm not saying that we are going to ape their systems, but our processes are actually uh, kind of copying the entire procedure. So it was gold water nickels act there, and now it was the prime minister who forced it on us. Can you believe it when he told the I mean people to reduce the strength of the armed forces because of the excessive revenue expenditure? Study after study actually refused to acknowledge the need for a change. In fact, everybody said that we are going to be at the same levels, etc., without actually really going into it. And you are aware that the first study which actually went into some kind of a positive mode was the one which I had done on the signals. Of course, later on, I don't know, I retired after that. So this top down approach has to be there here. I don't know, somehow this is the fate as far as our nation is concerned. Go ahead, sorry.
sir, firstly, it was General Rawat who was the chief, sir, when the implications, the revenue implications of without financial support doing this was presented to him in the MO Ops room. I had done that presentation, and certain
Mhm.
decisions were taken, but that's beyond the purview here, sir. But what
Yeah.
I'd like to say, sir, that we've got clear directions, and yet we are dragging our feet. And like I say in many fora, it's not something I've discovered after retirement. I've been saying it within 3 months of the job at Andables from October 2021 onwards, much to the detriment of people who don't like this. But the fact is, no turkey votes for Thanksgiving dinners. And when I speak to my younger officers, I say no chicken votes for tandoori tonight. I would like someone to prove me wrong because I can give examples, but that is not the issue here. The Prime Minister referred to our silos. I mean, I'm talking of this article which was written 2 days after 1st of April, on 3rd of April by Shishir Gupta in the Hindustan Times. So I'm not quoting anything other than public source. The Prime Minister mentioned about us working in silos and there being a need for us to have operational and jointness synergy. Uh, my personal experience, sir, if we saw the creation of Andaman Nicobar Command 22 plus years ago, there were naval officers at the helm everywhere. Army Chief General Padmanabhan, Naval Chief Admiral Sushil Kumar, the Chief of Naval Staff Admiral Sushil Kumar was the 18th, the 19th was Admiral Madhvendra, 20th was Admiral Arun Prakash, who was the first Sincan. So there was a 6 year window in which, if this was not what was envisaged by the founders of the command or those in the Chiefs of Staff Committee, they would had ample time to undo it. So for us to make a different interpretation of events as they unfolded then may not be fair. The second thing I'd like to draw your attention to is the lower part of the slide, where it is unequivocally saying that I can't read this, sir, because there's this heading slide number 10 there. But if I
Yeah.
remember it correctly, It was, it said something like, it's only one sentence, till a CDS is appointed, the Commander-in-Chief, Andaman Nicobar Command will function under the Chairman Chiefs of Staff Committee, till a CDS is appointed.
Yes.
Therefore, in one commander's conference, when a chief told me, Ajay, the problem is that ever since a CDS is appointed, you don't come under me, you come under him. I had only 2 points for submission. Sir, I don't see why it's a problem. I thought it's the way ahead for the future battlefield. And secondly, the way I look at it, it was he was appointed 18 years too late. It's not that it's now happened and back foot batting. And in a Pyarelal Memorial lecture I was taking last year, was it November, February this year, a very senior three-star officer asked me, but Ajay, the CDS has no operational command as per the government notification letter. I told him, I beg to differ, sir. And you are saying this government letter doesn't have parliamentary authority. The group of ministers, the Kargil Review Committee has been tabled in Parliament. After its acceptance, we were raised. And as terms of its acceptance, I put on the slide so that this at least point by raised by some people is laid to rest for good. I mentioned about the 2017 land merging letter. These are the details of that letter. It's unclassified. So the other point I want to bring out, I've been hearing many iterations about integration of various theatre commands. And I
Yeah.
would like to bring out that Andaman Nicobar Command is an integrated command. And when we talk of command, we're only talking of headquarters. Our headquarters has an ops vertical with officers from the Army, Navy, Air Force. Similarly, a tech vertical commonly staffed and a administrative vertical commonly staffed, and similarly a med vertical. We are
Yeah.
not an amalgamated command that one air vertical, one army vertical, one navy vertical. Maybe strategic forces command could be like this for purposes of secrecy, which is not, it's apples and onions, not comparable.
In
However,
any
sir,
case,
I would also like to say,
in any case, that's
sorry,
a
sir.
command. In any case, that's a command which we should not discuss here. Essentially, it's
No,
out of
no,
the
sir.
scope of.
The point is something else, sir. If you let
It's
me
out of
finish,
the
sir, the
scope.
point is that in some of the iterations, some of the recommended models by the services are an
Hmm.
amalgamated model. एक थिएटर में एक वर्टिकल कर दो एयरफोर्स का एक नेवी का और उसी का एक्सट्रपोलेशन है कि अगर वर्टिकली अलग है तो हम अपने ही रीजनल हेडक्वार्टर में बैठ के आपको फोन से बात कर लेंगे आईसीसीएस
Hmm.
नोड में तो वैसे ही रिमोटली बात करते हैं एक दूसरे से
Correct. Correct.
so that is what I want to bring out. And our
Okay.
verticals sit in one joint operational center. Yesterday, I heard Air Marshal Sachdeva talking on a channel on
Hmm.
Adi Talks. We don't have to go to Norway or some other country to see. We can just go to Port Blair and see a functioning joint operation center. So,
Bilkul.
to that extent, I was bringing it out about the difference between amalgamated verticals and integrated verticals.
Yeah.
Anyone recommending amalgamated verticals is actually continuing with the service pull of retaining that turf what the Prime Minister warned us against.
Correct.
Sir, and I'm grateful to the air chief who gave me this idea, and I put this slide in this manner. He brought out something very well. He says, Ajay, our strength is in our bases. And like in the PLA, our bases talk to our command headquarters, regional commands. So I was thinking, even our strength is in our battalions, sir. The
Mhm.
Navy strength is in its ships. What
Correct.
the Air Force doesn't have, they don't have a core headquarter like us. They don't have a
Abs-
fleet headquarter like the Navy. So they
Absolutely.
have bases directly under a command. So I put
Correct.
it to them that whose argument is it? That a base can be a base under an air command, but it cannot be a base under a theater command, which is staffed by Air Force officers. So when the Southern Air Command wanted to extend its wings over the airspace of Andamans, I had only one observation. I also have an air component commander and an air defense controller. If you see the last slide,
Yeah, it's there.
okay, the component commander here comes under that category, Army, Navy, Air Force. I have 19 fighter controllers with me. I have an air defense commander. He may be an air commodore, Southern Air Command air defense commander, maybe a two-star. But the fact is, the organization as per the strength of these columns. There are certain units we look after, there are certain common units. But the point I'm bringing out is when we talk of theaterization, there should be no defensive or amygdalian response that we are losing anything. Today is an important day, sir. All our people are wearing a common uniform. The strength is in battalions, and in battalions, you wear your uniform. But this is not something new, sir. When we were commissioned, I remember my father wearing, you became a full colonel or a brigadier and you wore the common general Carter uniform. And then someone, the pull of the lanyard became so strong, and some chief passed an order, and everyone started wearing lanyards. And my gratitude, we go to a UN mission, we are told you're walking around like a Christmas tree, non-professional combat dress. So at least we owe it. We are grateful that we have a combatized combat dress, and we've gone to a common uniform. So this, I think, are wonderful steps of going back to the common uniform we had. So this slide I made for General Rawat in 2017. It's taken from the internet. I heard yesterday also that the senior most service chief becomes chiefs of staff chairman, committee chairman. I was playing golf with a retired naval chief at Port Blair, who was our honorable LG. He said, Ajay, most naval chiefs retire before 62. They get promoted early. They finish 3 years of command, and the QR for a chief is 3 years or 62, whichever is earlier. But
Yeah,
because they are senior earlier, they become senior amongst the 4 star generals. And you would find, sir, this is actual tenures held by the Navy in calendar years. And the Navy has held the appointment of Chairman Chiefs of Staff Committee for 50% of the time, Air Force
that,
35%, Army 15%. And for those who don't understand the incongruity of this, the Army is 14 lakhs or 12 and a half, what's a few lakhs here and there.
yeah,
In Bhatinda military station in COVID, in the lockdown, I had 49,000 all souls. The
that's
strength
true.
of the Navy is 66,000. Strength of the Air Force is 1,66,000. So, and when I talk to the Navy, there is angst. I'll show you the next slide, sir. This is the, okay, I'll come to the integration experience. That slide is 2 slides away. Now, sir, I mentioned I never understood victory through jointness. And what we have done is we adopted a new motto with the approval of the CDS and the Raksha Mantri. Together we are stronger. It doesn't evoke any defensive response. No one is touching the components. We are only talking about the headquarters. The same headquarter officers who are now wearing a common uniform in the army from today. And sir, did you know that Admiral Arun Prakash made a common combat dress for everyone serving in Andaman Nicobar Command? The Navy and
Yes,
the Air Force used to wear a combat dress like the Army. But
correct.
no one asked us when they changed the Army combat dress. Now the Navy and the Air Force don't know what to wear in Andaman Nicobar Command. So after 22 years of wearing a common dress, well before it became the flavor of the season, now suddenly we went our separate way, and the other services are adopting their. So we actually broke down a common dress adopted by Admiral Arun Prakash. Coming back here, this was when the Raksha Mantri came to us on 2nd of January. What was our integration experience, sir? We empowered our Joint Operations Center. We said form greens are, sir, what the Air Force gives, like our movement orders for the Army. Sailing orders are for the Navy. I passed an order, I will not issue diesel and arrest anyone whose aeroplane takes off, including the Coast Guard, without ATC clearance, which is my ATC. There will only be central form greens and sailing orders. We don't have luxuries to run private armies on an island. So therefore, we integrated all operations, we integrated all this. I remember General Rawat telling me, Mera charter padha hai na? He briefed me on 27th May before I left. I said, yes, sir. I'm sending you there. I want XYZ integrated. And he was very happy. We went a few steps beyond what he said. But I must also share with you before I come to the next point, sir. He used to like completed staff work. I mean, I hold him in very, very high regard, a wonderful professional. And the aeroplane which goes from Port Blair lands at Delhi at around 2:30. So Brigadier Lakhvinder, God bless his soul too, I used to tell him, I said, Lakhvinder, my officer courier will reach by about 3 o'clock. The file I send should be the topmost file in the CDS's in train. Don't send any other file after that till you put my call through. Had 3 occasions to write letters like this. The first one on 6th of September. I mentioned to him, I said, sir, I would always speak in English and he would reply in Hindi. English is a more formal language. I was speaking to my CDS. I would say, sir, I come under you. Point me out. I said, why do the CRs of my officers go to service chiefs? Tomorrow, someone doesn't make it in the board, he'll go to court. That operational channel doesn't go to the services. Who are they to write my ACR? And he was quiet for a few seconds. And he said, Ajay, मैं तो 1.5 साल से CDS हूँ, पहले क्यों नहीं करा? चिट्ठी भेज. I said, sir, it's the topmost file in your entry. And I think
And
it
it
was a
was
week or 10 days later when that letter was issued that no ACR of Tri-Service Andaman Nicobar Command will go to any service chief for review.
correct.
So there were
Actually,
many changes like this. And part of these changes you will see on the next slide. Cross training. I had my Coast Guard component commander when he was retiring telling me in my interview, I said, tell me some things which we can improve. I can improve personally. We can take things forward. And Dinesh Rajputran, He tells me, he said, sir, I have never seen my navics do slithering from a Mi-17 helicopter. Yojana mein Army Infantry Battalion ko nahi milti slithering opportunity. My Coast Guard used to do slithering to understand how they have to support army operations. I don't need a new doctrine. I don't need a national security strategy to tell me if I'm the theater commander what has to be done for furthering jointness in my command. And that I will refer to in towards the end of that one point which you told me earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
Joint PRO, we opened a new Twitter handle. Communication integration, we made a new DweepNet. We didn't take approval from any service headquarter. Joint logistic node, it was already in the making, it was expedited. We made an integrated land and budget. It was already part there. We made an integrated station headquarter. 5 years ago, the order had come, but they were all running their own station headquarters, and I'm the custodian. And it's not anyone's land, it's the government of India land. Today, I was seeing 139 acres of Tattu land at Srinagar handed over. Sir, for Netaji's 125th birth anniversary in January, the administration last year asked us for Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose Dweep. The official MOD sanction to hand it over came on 27 December. I handed it over on 25th July, 6 months before the sanction. So we know we are part of the national architecture. We know what's national interest, and we are happy to be part of it. I mentioned integrated station headquarters, zone. We made a new zonal plan, and we even kept space in this zonal plan. It's not, I'm not an army officer fending for the army. If you don't think purple, and if all your components don't weigh equally with you, then you've forgotten that Rudyard Kipling's If prayer in front of your table in India. Married accommodation, everyone used to have their own pools. You don't feel the pain of a naval officer waiting for 3 years and an army officer 3 minutes, the times it takes to sign his register with 100 houses lying vacant. Just because map accommodation was funded separately by a particular service and it came up faster. But land is common now. Budgets are from a theater. So it doesn't require rocket science to integrate accommodation. It took us 6 months to formulate the rules. I didn't have any conceptual construct or a doctrine to guide me. And in any case, sir, I was last 5 days ago, I was in High Command Wing in infantry school taking a lecture. I asked for the infantry school, there were younger officers. I asked the High Command course. In the Land Warfare Doctrine 2018, what's the central golden thread, sir? Not one officer could answer. So doctrines, I'm sure, they don't guide war fighting. You've also been a co-commander, sir. War fighting is guided, yes. The feedback of doctrines and campaigns feeds the next doctrine, and the next doctrine can feed your equipping profile and whatever. But at the level of the cutting edge or the core or below, there's so much said. It cannot be a detriment to theaterization. Merger of CSD, new mess, whatever. I will not belabor on this. Coming back, sir. Sir, I mean, this was a slide 14th of June. First 10, 11 days, I got a break in the weather and I was out touring the islands. 2 days after coming back, I addressed the officers. And quest for knowledge unfettered by rank or appointment. And there was only one KRA. I mentioned to you, sir, when I wrote the draft of Land Warfare Doctrine, the central golden thread was something called directive style of command. It's practiced by its absence. So, to anyone, I'm sure all our KRAs are battle ready. But we had to qualify it, practice that. Because if we don't understand this, we will not understand the need for theaterization, sir. Tomorrow's war is going to be distributed war with strategic corporals. And I want to bring out, sir, people often say, you put the cart before the horse and ask questions. What is the
Yes.
conceptual construct? What is the conceptual construct for theater command, sir? What is the need? Have we asked, and the air chief brought out these points very, very succinctly. And out of his 10 points, I bring out in every fora, whether to the detriment of any common opinion which a service would like. I am fully supporting the air chief's views on 8 out of 10 of his points. Unfortunately, the other two make it a little difficult. Uh, what has the air chief said? I put a slide on it after this, sir.
Yeah.
What was the conceptual construct of the Army Headquarters reorg study we did after Duklum? That we must have an overall strategy. We must have verticals based on functional rather than legacy requirements. Our organization structure should be leaner and more responsive with minimal overlap. You can't have one DG and another DG both looking after similar outcomes. Unburdened higher direction, you cannot get the chief and vice chief involved in routine decision making. There must be empowerment. If a DG is empowered for decision making, only then you can demand accountability from him. And I'm
Yep.
bringing out these points because the same thing is applicable in case of theaterization and theater commands. Messaging of intent, self-explanatory, and decision-making structures must give you shorter decision cycles. And there must be a predefined outcome. And what is our conceptual construct, sir? It must have operational consideration. We've heard this guidance from CDS already on at USI. Our decisions must be faster and not ensconced in respective service verticals. Optimizations in effort, resources, manpower procurements, and one size, sir, does not fit all. I mean, we saw the frontiers, which I showed in the second slide. The man on ground knows best. I used to sometimes pull my hair out when a colonel in MO, who doesn't even possibly know the difference between Port Blair and Campbell Bay, is telling me that the competent authority feels you don't need this. And I used to tell General Rawat, I said, sir, you have bigger battles to fight, you leave this to me. Planning, operations and resources needed as per synergized theatre requirements. And procurements, we must progress. I've seen so many papers, we must go to capability based rather than platform based. I would just like to bring out, sir, what were the few things which were said. The twin battles of Austerlitz and Jena, 1802, 1804. 400 years, the Prussian army was the best army in Europe. And they were defeated by Napoleon's light infantry, ragged citizen conscripts, running to the sound of drums, which were sounded at the point of contact. And what did the Prussians do? From the humiliation of this war of the twin battles of Austerlitz and Jena, they created a German general cadre. Stephen Bunge has written a very good book on the decisions taken by von Moltke, Field Marshal. And what did he say? The result was an operational tempo which left the Prussians bewildered. So please look what should be our conceptual construct for theaterization. We have to have a faster OODA cycle. Our two potential
Absolutely.
adversaries have faster OODA cycles. We cannot be talking across silos and verticals to be integrated at headquarter IDS and come back to us in an integrated manner. Empower that theater commander. Stop having backseat driving through a chiefs of staff committee. I'll come to that later, sir. But he also said the Prussian army needed to get cleverer and faster, needed to be able to take just about right decisions quickly rather than waiting for the better ones later. And what did the chief of Prussian general staff say on the catastrophe of the twin battles? The humiliation which took them 130 years to come out of, and how did they come out of it? We saw the Blitzkrieg.
It's
Because the
great.
lessons of Fuller and Little Heart were not heeded by the Imperial General Staff in London and heeded across the Channel by the German General Staff.
Correct.
We fought bravely enough, but not cleverly enough, sir. Military professionals would understand the imperatives for early theaterization of our assets and our efforts. I'm sorry, I can't see the last bit, so I was reading it off the paper, sir. What did
That
our
doesn't
air
matter.
chief say when he came to us? What did our air chief say when he came to us for 2 days, sir? Let's define the problem. Whether the contours of the problem, the conceptual construct, I couldn't agree with him more, sir. Evolving the solution jointly with equality in rank for decision making. Because maybe a smaller service will feel overwhelmed, so I can understand where this comes from. Air Defense Command is not viable. So we saw that quota inquiry, some people getting court-martialed for the Spider missile fired at Srinagar.
Yeah.
If you say 1,000 feet and an aeroplane goes between 900 and 1100, you will keep squabbling. It was at 990 or 1010 when it was shot down, or it was not shot down. Can you divide a theater on a height band? So I fully agree. And I asked him, I said, sir, where did this rabbit come out of the hat and how? So we had our own discussion on this. Avoid an additional decision layer. Baba, I mean, if our aim, and that's why I said primacy of op considerations, I fail to have anyone explain to me how an extra layer is going to reduce our decision cycles. And if the aim and primacy of considerations say that our decision cycle should be shorter, you cannot superimpose an extra layer because you're not talking about the hidden elephant in the room, which is HR matters. I've got a slide on that after this, sir. So
Yeah.
therefore, make the role of regional commands clear. A very, very correct point of the air chief. No single service to be a leader theater forever. Now I have my doubts here. Yes, to set it up, you can give each service one. But let's not put the cart before the horse. Let the government decide who's most suitable. We've already seen the service chiefs having going towards common 2 and 3 star boards, and I'm sure right people at the helm know what decisions to take. So we can't ask for a guarantee in advance कि सबका एक बांटेंगे. कोई अंधा बांटे रेवड़ी अपने अपने के दो थोड़ी हो रहा है. Splitting resources is not recommended. I fully agree. You want 45 squadrons, you are down to 21 and a half, डेढ़ squadron, 21 बीस की हटा दो. But then I asked the chief, I had two questions which I ask in all fora, and then I find this argument dries up quickly. I said, sir, is it your contention that air resources cannot be split because of their paucity? I fully agree. But then why do we have 5 geographic air command? We should have nil.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Everything should be under, if, because
Absolutely.
the air chief
That's
was telling me, Ajay, I can send a strike package of so many aircraft from Gwalior
yeah.
to XYZ. I won't take the name of the place. But who's doing this? It's DG Air Ops. And is it anyone's argument that DG Air Ops can do this if he's sitting in Vayu Bhavan, but cannot do it if he's sitting under the CDS? CDS, sir, is about integration of operations, of intelligence, and of operational logistics.
Yeah.
So this point I don't agree with. This is one of those two, ninth and 10th I mentioned. Theatre is to be geography and not threat-based. I agree. You can't have a air defense and spy space or whatever. And we've not reached the stage of organograms. So at the fleet review, there were us, many of us colleagues, co-mates from NDAs who were CNCs at Dolphin Cove. And we said the same thing, that unless our higher leadership gives us these two main decisions, we will, with that Buddhi Amma Chakki Pisoing, we will keep making organograms and getting nowhere. What are the two decisions we want? The first qualifying decision, that IDS will be restructured with Ops, Int, and OL of all three services. And second
Absolutely.
decision, will we continue with 17 legacy regional commands or do away with them and let a theater commander decide if he wants any particular command to coordinate any particular aspect of his theater? We all want to micromanage the other headquarter. And then let a theater commander decide for himself and where he wants to locate it. Otherwise, we've had Admiral AB do a study on behalf of the Navy, General Binder do it on behalf of the Army from Jaipur, and General Dimri do it at Lucknow. What's happened to those studies? Another study has been ordered now. So, as a prelude, I put it on the right for lack of space. The Air Force has bases, I've already mentioned, and the Air Chief has mentioned, he mentioned it in two commanders' conference and before the Air Force Day in his press conference. Uh, Hierarchy reduce faster decisions, and the way forward, like I mentioned, these points must be clear. However, like I said, these are the two imperatives we require from higher headquarters for guidance. So this is a slide which I put in my Army headquarter reorg study. I've just copied it out of there. But what I want to draw attention, and this I used to hear from the Navy when I used to go, sir. Sir, if you look at the third column, in front of the Army, there's 91. The Army has 91 three-star officers, lieutenant generals. The Navy
Okay.
has 23, the Air Force has 30, and headquarter IDS has 4. Now, this was to see the number of PSOs and how many of them are at Delhi. But what I want to draw attention, what I put the figures here, in bracket are the number of CNCs. For a 12 or 14 lakh, depending on what you count in CT2, for a 12 lakh strength army, you have 8 CNCs. For a 1.5 lakh strength Air Force, you have 8 CNCs. So now I can understand where Air Headquarters says that we are okay with theaterization, our CNC should not reduce. But when I go to a naval formation, they tell me, Ajay, we are half the size of the Air Force, but we have 3 CNCs. So there is some disconnect here. And this is the hidden elephant in the room which I spoke of. And I don't understand. It's not about pay, sir. Because if it was about pay, I'd draw your attention to the right column. I presented it when I was DGFP. A brigadier gets more pay than me. I get
Absolutely.
2,25,000, which is the second from the bottom circle ellipse. And a brigadier gets the third from the bottom ellipse, which is at the center right side of the slide. 2,33,100 because he gets 15,000 MSP. This has been resolved for major generals. It's still at hand. So it's not about money. And in any case, the 35 of the 91 senior lieutenant generals automatically, if they've commanded a corps, they go into HAG plus, and when their colleague becomes a CNC, they get into that grade. So are
Yeah.
we holding back needed reform for the next generation who will fight the next war after we've superannuated on HR issues which we're not talking of? We should put it up front and talk about it and put it out of the way. Either you say, okay, every service will be given 10% of their senior ranks as CNC grade, आप किसी को दे दो. Or you say that give NFU. It was our own hierarchy when NFU was offered to us, which said, no, we don't want it, नहीं तो कोई काम क्यों करेगा? I don't see
Absolutely.
brigadiers not working or lieutenant generals not working because brigadiers are getting more pay. So I think we've gone beyond that and we must go ahead. But I wanted to flag this because I often ask officers whenever I speak to them, what is it? Please explain to me why this tardiness to reduce regional commands. Next, sir, higher defense organization. What I'd like to say, sir, that in higher defense organization, there's something intrinsic to us and something extrinsic to us. An army chief, sir, or a navy chief or an air chief, let me talk of the army, there's far greater span of control, is looking after two fronts. He's looking after CI ops. He's attending to matters of raise, train, sustain. His presence is mandatorily required at headquarters on certain occasions. He has to review command headquarters, their CRs by visits every 6 months, twice a year. There is too much for span of control, and 7 to 9, maybe 10 hours is the maximum person a time has in the day. So we've been up the food chain, sir. The I can count on my fingers the number of senior officers who didn't micromanage junior headquarters. Who's doing your job? Yes, you can decide what you want to look at if you don't have the comfort. But then what about that central golden thread of directive style of command? Leave him be. After education and alignment are in place with the higher vision. And be accountable for your job. Get down and do your job. And your job is to spend time on this level of interaction. And I'm sorry, sir. I mean, I've finished 2 years. With all honesty, without pre-prepared outcomes, no one has taken my opinion on any of this. And I was the only integrated theatre command on the table. I asked at the Naval Command on 25th of February. I somehow remember dates and figures. I don't know how, sir. And on the 25th of February, I had one doubt, sir. I'm grateful the Naval Chief and the Air Force Chief really, I mean, encouraged and embraced us. I went and asked them, I said, "So I assure you my integrity. Can you please include me as part of your commanders' conferences?" Otherwise, the CNC wasn't called. And they did that. It was their magnanimity. I'm grateful to Admiral, at that time, Admiral Karambir and Air Chief Marshal Baduria, and later, of course, Admiral Hari and Air Chief Marshal Chaudhry. And therefore, when I used to attend these senior commanders' conferences, Admiral Hari said, "Ajay, you please go for the Maritime Theatre Command study." When we were at the President's Fleet Review, we got an organogram in which they said, and the 21st September letter of CDS said, make other regional commands like ANC, integrate them. And the first version of this study said, we said, give us something, you're calling us to Bombay, give us something to discuss. So the first organogram which came was that we will split ANC. We will divide the naval component will go under Eastern Naval Command, the Air Force component under the Southern Air Command Trivandrum, the Army component under 54-day Sikandrabad, and the vacancy of the CNC will come to the Navy. Remember what I told you about 3 versus 8?
Yeah, yeah.
And we will downgrade it. So like my chief of staff, Admiral Dalbir Gujral told me, sir, ये question तो syllabus के बाहर है. You've been told to integrate your study to make them like ANC. आपने उनको तो छुआ नहीं, ANC को disband कर दिया. So when I raised this logic issue, by the time I went back to Port Blair to brainstorm with my officers and I landed back to Bombay, I was told, so organogram has changed. Now they are not breaking up ANC, but they are taking away the CNC's appointment, making it the 3-star SINCAN and putting it under Eastern Naval Command. So I listened to the deliberations next day, and when it was my turn, I had one logic observation, sir, that tomorrow, if it is anyone's argument that you can put a 3-star purple organization, you are aware, sir, for the other young officers, a tri-service organization we refer to as a purple organization. If you can put a 3-star, a purple organization under a single service command of Eastern Naval Command, then tomorrow it will be the Navy's argument that the Maritime Theatre Command should be under Naval Headquarters. And the Army would be in its rights to say that the 2 Land Theatre Commands should be under Army Headquarters. And then you might as well disband Air Headquarters and CDS and IDS. The Army and the Naval Headquarters will fight India's battles. But it doesn't work like that. Say, to syllabus ke bahar hai solution. So, fortunately, I think the wisdom was accepted and we remained as it is, and no change was recommended. But coming back here, sir, there is the reality of the span of control. The theatre commander would focus on something he's accountable. Accountability and responsibility will converge like we did in the Army Headquarters study. And if you look at the conceptual construct and the logic building blocks, I don't think we can find an argument against theaterization. Other than national security strategy pehle de do ya national military strategy pehle de do. Did we win 71 in Kargil without these, sir? 36 chiefs have functioned. I've not seen one of them say we want to resign because we don't have this. So these are red herrings to my mind, sir. Please, sir. We've also heard in Parliament and many of our thinkers, and we've heard Mr. Subramaniam Swamy, one of our former strategic thinkers. Does Israel have a documented military strategy, sir? I heard that General Raj Shukla make this point. So everything doesn't have to be articulated, much like our nuclear doctrine is the most brilliant one. It's in the open domain. So coming back here, sir, doctrines I've brought out, sir, to my view, and heavy is the head which wears the crown. A theatre commander knows what to do best for his theatre. Empower him, make him accountable, and he will do what needs to be done for his theatre. And similarly, to support him. In headquarter IDS, when you have the ops, int, and OL verticals of all 3 services, you can call him whatever name. Yesterday, General Raj Shukla, sir, was it yesterday? Sorry, on 11th of July on your channel, sir. That's where I heard your channel. First of all, he mentioned he is convinced that we need a 4-star CISC to coordinate the theatres. Yes, we can have a chiefs of staff committee with the service chiefs who are doing raise, train, sustain, with the theatre commanders and the CISC and the CDS. But those are meeting periodically. When I heard And I saw on a slide, sir, that the integrated theatre commands were planned to be under the Chiefs of Staff Committee. I was very worried, sir. I flagged it for the Raksha Mantri on 2nd January. I gave it in my briefing to the CDS on 22nd January. And I brought it out in front of the Raksha Mantri in the Combined Commanders Conference at Bhopal on 31st of March, sir. I said, sir, एक म्यान में एक ही तलवार होती है. A battalion is commanded by a commanding officer, not by a committee of company commanders. मेरे भाई को आर्मी के चीफ बैठे हैं, and army is commanded by an army chief, not by a committee of army commanders. A nation is led by a prime minister, not a committee of ministers. When European Union is led by a committee of ministers, we see what their response policies are to Ukraine. And therefore, if I'm a food member, sir, tomorrow someone is coming to my mess. I don't tell the mess secretary I've got a menu ready, but get the garden member, property member, wine member, तभी आपसे बात करूंगा. Committee इकट्ठी करो. So therefore, there is a hands-on approach and there's a larger decision-making body. In IDS to support this, we are all aware in IDS. And the beauty of it is for 3 years, we've been seeing MOMI and OL of all three, at least Army, making these diagrams and charts who will go there when the order is passed. For 3 years, these tables have got made. And in IDS, likewise, sir. So intrinsic to us, I've spoken of higher defense organizations, sir. Extrinsic to us, whole of the nation approach we talk of, sir. Of course, there is a cabinet committee on security. This is the slide the CDS showed us at the USI and elsewhere. There's PMO, there's PS to the PM, there's the PSA. We have these bodies, National Security Advisor, the 4 deputy NSAs. We are all aware of this, sir. Under the MHA vertical, we have these IB, NIA, CBI, Central Armed Police Forces. Similarly, MOD vertical agencies. So I would like to say, sir, that on the civil side, our structure is in place. What else do we want? And today, we cannot predict everything, sir. What the Chinese have done made the SFF, sir, SSF. It is integrating cyberspace, electronic warfare under one agency. For these extra CNC ranks, we cannot start dividing cyber and space. Cyber command hoga, space command hoga. Shakespeare may have said imitation is the best form of flattery. Just because an adversary has done it doesn't mean we shouldn't follow suit, sir. This I have brought in purple, sir. What did the CDS tell us on 28th of June? Military reforms in the 21st century when he spoke on the 21st or 31st Jan Samir Sinha, 21st Jan Samir Sinha Memorial Lecture. Theaterization and HDO changes are needed. Theaterization is an end state of jointness and integration. And I think the CDS defined it very well. From what he said, jointness is about creating the right spirit of bonhomie, and it is a prerequisite for integration. Integration is combining unique capabilities of the three services. It's more of a physical activity. And theaterization is the end state. But for all those naysayers who say end state cannot be reached for another 5 or 10 years, how has end state been reached for 22 years as founded by Admiral Arun Prakash in the Andaman Nicobar Command? And I gave you that slide. Without a CDS for 9 months, we continued on the guidance. I just asked the Raksha Mantri. I said, sir, आज की तारीख में आप मेरे बॉस हैं. आपके कोई आदेश हो या मैं बताए हुए मार्गदर्शन पे ही चलता रहूं? He said, नहीं बिल्कुल जनरल जी आप करते रहिए. And we continued on the path which was shown to us by General Rawat. So, sir, concepts and doctrines. I've already mentioned logistics, time frame for theaterization. We can do it today. We can do it tomorrow. Appoint the structures. You say, okay, this person is appointed. Let him decide what he needs, and take it forward from there. Okay, 6 months soft launch. We hear of soft launch for so many things, but here we want hard launch after 5 years. I am reminded of that turkey and Thanksgiving dinner, sir. Need to redefine. And of course, the approach. And this is what the CDS had mentioned. I would like to bring out. Yes, I can't see that slide there, sir.
Yeah, approach to top-down informal discussion.
Yes, he
COS.
mentioned they have informal discussions and then they take it up in Chiefs of Staff Committee and then it gets cast in stone. I couldn't agree more. And not because I respect him so tremendously, but this is my experience there. If you don't have some hard lines to take decisions on, after 2 years of effort, someone will question your very basics, and we know what we're talking of there, sir. And then what did the CDS say? That are principles. I told you the conceptual constructs. We must have national over service considerations, joint structure creation, primacy of operations, then logistics, and lastly, HR considerations. But HR continues to remain that hidden elephant in the room, determining all our actions, sir. preferred approach of one service consensus, and integration to be time bound, critical sector to be theaterized first. I have my views, sir, and jointness is the key, no doubt, sir. No ambiguity in command and control structures, and the process of change should not affect our war fighting response. 100% on as required, sir. I think, sir, I would like to finish. It's my last two slides
Yeah,
before we open up for discussion and question answers.
yeah, yeah.
This is something, sir, I passionately believe in and I show everywhere. We can only try and make a change in our own sphere of span of control. Loyalty is not being a yes man. Professional dissent is not disloyalty. Discussion is not denial, and dispute is not mutiny. And the path to truth lies in argumentation and not acclamation. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, very good, sir. You surround yourself with very good, then who will tell you the hard truth, sir?
Yes.
An organization with a little chaos is dead. And of course, this I just showed in the higher command wing 3 days ago. There was an important job to be done. Everybody was sure somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it. Nobody did it. Somebody got angry because everyone's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it. Nobody realized everybody wouldn't do it. Ended up everyone blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. So these organograms have been getting made for the last 3 years, and your smile tells it all. Anybody can do it, sir. Give those
Yeah.
two higher decisions and walk the talk, sir.
Correct.
I am convinced it can be done today, provided we think nation first and we don't think our service interest first. I think
Uh,
that's the last slide.
yeah.
There is one more, sir, if you can just go back. I would like to
Okay.
conclude it here. You had asked one point earlier.
Yeah.
Uh, this I've mentioned already. The only, I would say that honesty, sincerity to the nation, I've mentioned it. And like the Prime Minister appealed to us, sir, let's leave our serfs and Tylos apart. I was surprised at how much the Prime Minister is aware. गोल्फ कोर्सेज को शेयर कर लें मैंने सुना है दिल्ली में एक दूसरे को आप खेलने नहीं देते हैं शेयर योर अकोमोडेशन share your institutes. So this is we are making turfs out of government land which is not even our own, sir.
Correct.
So we can walk the talk. We just have to, I think, find the will to do it. I have heard firsthand a particular service chief say, I have 3 months to retire, not on my turf. What will I answer to my veterans? If we keep kicking the can down the road, sir, then how will our serving generation today and our younger officers fight the next round with the changes which are required? I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ajay. In fact, sorry, there was an initial technical snag, so we went offline for about 4 5 minutes, and our introductions
Okay,
got
no
introductions
problem.
got cut off. But I would like to still tell the audience that sorry for the initial snafu, but you did not miss Ajay's entire presentation. He went through his entire talk. I would simply like to reiterate what I had told in the beginning, that we are fortunate to have Ajay, and basic issue why we picked up Ajay was because of these voices which we were getting in the environment after the CDS's address in the USI. Uh, chief the former chief came up with this statement that without a clearly enunciated national security strategy, it would be foolhardy to pursue the enduring goal of creating tri-service integrated theater commands. You will find that General Ajay has given his response to this particular aspect. There are views on it, both pros and cons. In my view, I also feel that there has to be a vision overall, and based upon that, once it is laid down, people can act upon it. Theater commands can act upon it. Yes, whether whether this should be done in writing, or we can follow the RM's guidelines and continue ahead. I think our systems have been working even without the laid down national security strategy, as the essence is known to every one of us, including the fact that there is an RM's guideline. He also recommended the establishment of a higher defense organization, again very well covered by Ajay. Jointness and theaterization is a distant dream was another voice which came up immediately after the address. Moment the address was taken, Bharat Karnat came up with an article, and I would
So
like
I
to
must
tell that.
share with you one thing, sir. If I
Yeah,
may, sir, I was there in that lecture. And I
yeah,
wonder how Bharat Karnan made that deduction. I saw him sitting there. And I'm sorry, sir. The CDS spoke very well. He spoke with a clear mind and with clear directions on the way forward. And I'm
Absolutely.
intrigued by someone of the eminence of Bharat Karnad could make these pessimistic deductions out of that lecture.
I would like to share here that we had interacted with Bharat Karnad way back in 2006. He carries a baggage of disappointment from 1975 onward on our reforms, especially after the 2002 the Kargil committee report. We were the first ones to approach him as far as this jointness was concerned, and thereafter he has been kind of negative in approach. So pessimism comes from the baggage which he is carrying, and probably that was the reason why he went ahead with this. In any case, we will hear such noises, and we have to take it. We have to actually objectively analyze it. Then you had that India is not an expeditionary force, so where is the need to create theaters? Now, this is something which has been mentioned by both, uh, in fact, by all three Army, Air Force, and Navy experts. Would you like to throw some light on this? This argument of essentially the Air Force, and I think, and they also link it with the shortage of resources, and they also link it with the fact that
Certainly.
we are only looking at the we are only looking at our threat mitigation and not at any expansionist attitude or approach.
So I'd certainly like to say a few words.
Yeah,
Is our theaterization related only to an expeditionary role, sir? I thought it was to bring synergy in our operations, faster decision making. There is so many resources, not duplication, so many resources being wasted through triplication. We are aware, I won't go into the details. I had a month ago an Australian colonel doing NDC interviewing me on certain nuances of theaterization. And I asked her, I said, ma'am, how many theaters do you have in Australia? They have a CDS and they have one theater. They say Australia has a theater. What expeditionary role does Australia have? What expeditionary role does UK have? They've gone down to two brigade capability in their strategic defense review.
absolutely.
So expeditionary capability does not, if you've understood the conceptual construct of theaters, and I want to bring out two things, sir. In that same study, I requested Admiral AB. I said, sir, please, I speak for ANC and no one else should speak for ANC. And take my recommendation. I am convinced a maritime theater commander can only be a naval officer. The two Air Force CNCs were saying it should be Air Force also. They said, no, but you're an army person. I said, please understand. Andaman Nicobar Command is a small, essentially surveillance based command. It's a microcosm for further integration. But the fact is that fleet operations are specialized naval operations. I will take my whole life learning it, what I haven't learned in 40 years. So, therefore, you want to divide equally. You say one of the two land theater commands will go to the Air Force. But, like I said, only for the first iteration. Thereafter, leave it to the government to decide. And I want to also make a point here, sir. Some of my views are not politically correct, but I don't come under any service. So if you've not imbibed purple, at the end, sir, I had a chat a month before superannuating with my officers. What we do is we do it for them to leave it better. Any recommendation I made was brainstormed without rank. In fact, the last time I spoke to the higher command, JOCAP phase, I took off my pips. I said, you're all colonels, you're outranking me, so please say what you have to. But the fact was, sir, I used to have once a month, once in 6 weeks, a 1 hour talk with General Rawat on the phone. The last one, 10th September, was an hour and a half. And I think he was a little worried because that's the only time I said, sir, I need some guidance from you. And I think he sensed the tone in my voice. And he said, Ajay, kya ho gaya? Sab theek thaak? Good man. So I
Yeah.
told him, I said, sir, there is conventional wisdom that you don't burn your cigarettes from both ends simultaneously. I am burning mine from all three. Can you guide me? Should I pull back or continue? He said, what do you mean? I said, all three service chiefs will come complaining to you. I'm writing all these letters, making all these public articulations on what I see as the way ahead for theaterization. And he didn't take a second in saying, in Hindi, तेरे को भेजा क्यों था? लगे रहे. I had my guidance. So
So
I would request you, sir, to look at some of these points being raised and ask yourself, sir, are they service specific interests or are they purple points? The enemy at the gate is not waiting for us, sir.
correct.
And it is our job as soldiers and leaders to make sure कि कल के लिए कम से कम घरों में चूड़ियां टूटे.
Uh, as far as जो दूसरा पॉइंट था, एयर एसेट्स रिक्वायर्ड टू क्रिएट मीनिंगफुल स्ट्रक्चर्स, इसका यू हैव ऑलरेडी आंसर्ड दिस क्वेश्चन, सो वी आर नॉट
Yes,
गोइंग टू
it's not
वी आर
a
नॉट गोइंग टू My view is
They
that,
are just geographically placed in the command they are situated. That's all, sir.
my view is, if you can switch them now, you can switch them later also. If you can switch
Sir,
them
and if
between
headquarter
three
DG Aerox
commands,
can switch them in war, he can
correct,
switch them from Vayu Bhavan under CDS also.
एब्सोल्यूट एंड अगर आप चार कमांड से तीन कमांड जो एक्टिव कमांड है उनसे स्विच कर सकते हो तो इससे भी कर सकते हो. दैट्स नॉट अ मेजर हैसल. आफ्टर ऑल, यू अलॉटेड द रिसोर्स टू दीज कमांड्स. It's not that these commands are lying without resources. So it would have been the same thing if you create the fronts or theaters. Okay, so I would like some questions to be answered before. I mean, many of them you've already answered, but there is one thing which has which you did not cover in detail, and that was, how should we implement the theaterization? Should it be sequential? Should it be simultaneous? I'm now talking in terms of, you know uh, should it be a transformational change, या फिर वो इंक्रीमेंटल चेंज होना चाहिए, या पायलट प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड. पायलट प्रोजेक्ट तो हो गया है. अंडमान निकोबार कमांड को 22 साल से हमने,
22
क्या
साल
बोलते
से
हैं,
पायलट प्रोजेक्ट आपके सामने है, sir. Sir,
पायलट
I must
प्रोजेक्ट
also share with you, sir. In the 22-year-old pilot project, sir, all like a puppeteer, sir, till the CDS was appointed. So showed you the tendency of the chiefs of staff chairman. So a
बिल्कुल
chief from one service will tell his colleagues कि तू अपना component संभालना. So we were
करेक्ट.
like puppeteers being controlled from the mainland. We came into our own only on 1st January 20. And therefore, I'm convinced that the theaterization chain of command cannot go through service headquarters. It has to go एक म्यान में एक ही तलवार होती है, sir.
मैं
Secondly,
मैं
sir,
मैं
if
एक
there is
इंटरेस्टिंग
an enemy at the gate who's not waiting for us, sir, why can't we do it today? What is there to be done? Soft launch हम कितनी चीजों में बांच करते हैं. किसी को अपॉइंट करो, let him put his structures in place and give him 6 months.
तो इसी बात पे ना अगला क्वेश्चन जो आता है कि भाई, वी आर हैविंग थ्रेट्स व्हिच आर फ्रॉम द चाइनीज एंड द पाकिस्तानी. सो शुड वी डू अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेशनल चेंज, और शुड वी डू इट ग्रेजुअली, बिकॉज वी शुड नॉट बी ऑफ बैलेंस. ये पॉइंट आई थिंक द सीडीएस आल्सो रेज्ड इट, द सेकंड सीडीएस रेज्ड इट. This is one question, and also I would like to share a story. Again, मैं COSC चेयरमैन का नाम नहीं लेना चाहता हूँ. एक डिसीजन थी किसी लैंड के बारे में, जो कि सर्विस के पास थी. उन्होंने एज चेयरमैन सीओएससी ही गेव द ऑर्डर्स टू सिस दैट दिस लैंड बी अलॉटेड टू एक्स वाई जेड. और जब वो एक फ्लोर नीचे गए अपने ऑफिस में, तब उन्होंने बोला, यार, हाउ कैन वी गिव इट, दिस इज आवर लैंड. एंड he himself actually crossed over that particular, क्या बोलते हैं,
Sir, I'd like to say one point on what you just mentioned, sir.
या
Off balance, if we go fast, sir.
या
The devil is in the details, sir. Can we visualize how theater commands are fighting, sir? If a naval component, if a naval, what is a naval headquarter doing, sir? Regional headquarter. You have fleets out at sea. A naval headquarter is monitoring and integrating the operation of those fleets.
करेक्ट.
Now, in the soft launch period, you say that the regional commands will remain as they are. You set up immediately the structures required in IDS in the next 3 months. You give a soft launch period for a theater commander with his staff for the next 3 months. And then let the previous chain continue. And the previous chain can report to headquarter IDS. And over this period, this transition turbulence will be managed. So there is no off balancing, sir.
सो
So when you look at the army, our corps are reporting to the command, and gradually those commands will be replaced by theaters. The Air Force, in any case, they have educated us that it's only bases that matter. So what off balance are we talking of, and what time period are we talking of? We are not waiting for doctrines and national security strategies
या सो
and
इसके
doctrines which no one reads.
इसके काउंटर व्यूज भी हैं. सो वी विल हैव देम इन द क्वेश्चन आंसर फ्रॉम द ऑडियंस.
Yes, yes.
लेट अस
Please,
लेट
sir.
अस सी व्हाट let's see what they have to say about it.
Look
uh,
forward to that, sir.
yeah, and I would also like you to focus on this. We were interacting at the MOD level, and there were some people who said that, the DMA as of today is not fully, integrated with the overall MOD. There is a little bit of dissonance there. And also the NSA, at the NSA level, जो military advisor है, वो भी थोड़ा उतना एक्टिव नहीं है. उसको डेप्टी एनएसए का equivalence मिलना चाहिए था. So have you got your view? Have you got any views on these aspects based on your
Yes, sir.
interaction, based on your interaction?
100%, sir.
Yes, yeah,
I must share with you, sir. When I used to speak to some of my service colleagues in the army, I used to say when I met the chairman Raw, chairman NTRO, director Raw, or director IB, कब मिलता है तू इनको? And I went and met forest minister. I went and met Mr. Hardeep Puri, the honorable minister for oil and gas. He said, when do you meet them? I said, General Rawat tells me, go meet, sort out your cases. Tell them if you are successful as theater. He says, if you were in the army, you would have never got to meet them. So why I'm
correct.
saying, so giving this little background, so the more we get exposed, the more you'll have a varied view, especially when you've gone to the Air Force and interacted with the air components and the Navy and whatever. In MOD, is there a dissonance? Yes, sir, there is. I speak to the DG Coast Guards and tell him, why did you not come to Bombay for the Western Maritime Theatre Command discussion? So मेरा ticket book था, मेरे को defense secretary ने बोला मत जाओ.
Yeah, this is
When I had to write an ACR on one of the three Navy component, the Coast Guard component commanders, West Coast, East Coast, and Andaman Nicobar. As per MOD instructions of 2009, I am his reviewing officer. The DG Coast Guard is his initiating officer. The DG Coast Guard doesn't send me the ACR, sends it directly to DefSec. Who's the SRO? Because if anyone's logic, the Coast Guard must be in the DMA vertical and not in the DOD vertical. That's a legacy issue. It is staring
correct.
us in the face, sir. When I was doing the rebalancing study, DG Infantry rightly asked me a question. He says, Ajay, ENC is a PSO. There are only 57 engineer regiments. I am DG Infantry with 450 infantry battalions. Why am I not a PSO? And I said, very valid point, sir. General Shashank Mishra asked me this. I had no answer. The SONC asked me. He says, Ajay, I am also signal officer in chief. ये तो
Correct.
लेगेसी था जब वाइसरॉय को चाहिए था रोड और रेलवे बनाने के लिए ब्रिज बनाने के लिए डोमिनियंस के ऊपर काबू रख के ट्रुप्स मूव करने के लिए पीएसओ था and the army headquarter reorg study says that the day a CDS is appointed, we never thought a CDS will be appointed. The
Yeah,
ENC will move to headquarter IDS because he deals with works of all three services, and he'll move only because SRO 12 SOE, the engineer's order, it says that the works will be under the ENC, but it doesn't say ENC will be under the army. So that's how, in iteration with General Rawat, we found a solution for it. And we said, okay, we will suppress CME and have a DG combat engineers. And this was recommended by Vice Chief General MMS Rai, General Dimri, serving senior engineer, General Hasabnis, serving senior. So there much more we can do. So army commanders, higher decision-making body approve the need for tomorrow's warfare of a DGIW. Army commanders have not voiced in the presentation their any observations on this. I had written reports which I attached to the study. But after the government, a service headquarter viewpoint, with all army commanders on board, send a recommendation to the government. It comes back 1 year later. GSL is approved. For 4 years, we don't appoint a DG IW. Who's walking the talk then? How can we keep blaming extraneous factors? Government ने ये नहीं करा, government ने NSS नहीं बनाया. हमने क्या किया है?
absolutely.
Let's be critical about ourselves also.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
There is
So
dissonance. Yes, we need to resolve it. No doubt.
correct. Uh, Ajay, I think we've had a wonderful discussion, although we have overshot our time vastly, but that doesn't matter. I think people
Any
wanted
number
to
of
listen.
questions, sir.
Yeah, there are
I
questions.
only speak to the high command with 1.5 hours for question answers.
No, no, I have kept aside my questions. I wanted to take the audience also because audience would
Yes,
feel
please.
otherwise. General Kakkar says that is there a need for an NSS? All service chiefs and theater commanders know their role and tasks. Multiple reasons. Why we don't have it? Why make it mandatory? Makes no sense. Now this is a reiteration
We
of
were in
your
Central
point.
Command together. I respect him tremendously, and I think he's hit the nail on the head, sir.
Yeah, so this is a reiteration of your point, what you had just said. Then we have Rishi Atre. Is there a case to have common uniform for all integrated defense staff different from original service? Now,
I
something this
couldn't agree
is
more, sir. I told you Admiral Arjun Prakash made a common uniform. After following it for 22 years, one service made a new uniform without consulting the other two services. So it became disjointed after 22 years, sir.
and the photograph which you showed there, in your one of in between your presentation of the wings, in which you have the Air Force, Army, and the Navy all having different uniforms. So I sometimes wonder it was the photograph of the Andaman Nicobar Command, but people were wearing still different uniforms. So Actually speaking, there
That was that was in uniform, sir,
yes. So
not
actually
combat
speaking,
dress uniform.
actually speaking, were they even joint? Leave aside integrated. So somewhere I think we have been flip flopping so much at our senior levels that we have not been able to decide a course as to what course we will follow. People don't even know that the purple color, why has it been selected? Because the mixture of the OG red and the white makes it purple. That was supposed to be the integration. I think we are still far away from that kind of an integration, despite the 22 years of Andaman Nicobar Command. That's my view. Anyway, there is another question which is there from, why do we mix theater and integration? The problem is that we are not discussing the integration and jointness issues, but eyeing only for theater. Your comments, please. Now, this is the got the HR link to this
No, no, sir.
particular.
It's a very valid point. What we are saying is, like I said, sir, the integration is all the way up and down. But we must understand there's a difference between the headquarters we are talking of and the processes we are talking of. General Raj Shukla, in your 11th July discussion, very nicely mentioned about the processes and he spoke about the schools of instruction. He was coming from our track.
Yeah,
The services have already made a lot of progress. I have to give them full credit. Like I say, the progress is slower than maybe the enemy would they would be happy with it. Uh, like every different services have taken a lead for RPAs, for NBC Doctrine, for this coaching, for that we can do much more of it. But we must not mix up the integration and jointness at the lower levels with the requirement for making a headquarters integrated for operational planning and conduct.
absolutely, absolutely. That's absolutely true. In fact, I would like to share here that I retired as Commandant Army War College, and before my retirement, I had actually made a full blueprint for a joint higher command course in which at least the three services officers would be meeting for almost 3 to 4 months. That was the plan which I had. So out of the 11 months which they were spending as part of higher command course, 4 months they would be together and going through the, in fact, infrastructure was also catered for. I got a 1200 person auditorium sanctioned in Mao. That is well under construction. You visited higher command recently. I don't know what
Yes,
is the
yes.
fate of that. It was right at the entrance where I had got it. It had been cancelled by Timaya. Before me, Timaya was the war college commandant, and he did not want it, so he had cancelled it. He convinced Bipin Rawat, but I convinced back General Bipin Rawat. I said, "Sir, ये तो आपको देना ही पड़ेगा," and he finally agreed to give it, and that's how that stadium is, the auditorium is coming up. That was with this intention. I had this view that we must conduct the higher command course together of all the three. We had the resources, we had the quarters, we had the, I mean, everything was available in Mao to do it. I don't know what has been the progress on that. You retired 2 years later than me, so possibly you would be knowing more of it. But that is the integration at the lower levels, NDA and beyond. Then we have, of course, this is a comment for you, Ajay. Great listening to you. Agree with you. Blocks will always be there. So will shortfall of resources. Working in separate cylinders will never work if we don't do it ourselves. Will be bulldozed. Yeah, absolutely.
Very true, sir.
I,
Thank
I
you, sir.
would I won't call it as bulldozed. I would call it as people who are feeling the need. They are actually dictating to you. They also have their advisors. They also have their two pennies worth people feeding them, and that's how they come up with these kind of points that you're not even sharing your golf course. Leave aside jointness or
And sir,
integration
to be
or
honest, we are aware, sir. I mean, our service chiefs, they have so much pressures on them, so limited time. So it is the staff who puts up completed staff work. So if the
yeah.
staff is not thinking purple or thinking ahead, then I think
I I want to share here one thing. I have had an experience of across the board. That means I have worked with the MHA and I have worked with the MOD. We have reduced our chiefs to DG CRPF, DG BSF level. The way they are called to the headquarters on a drop of a hat, I think that's the way they are now getting involved in both operations and logistics and capability building. All these three aspects are now being questioned from the chief. My view is that it's time now that we should have the operational lineup under the CDS. CDS has
you're
been
right, sir.
appointed.
With the theaterization, it will get resolved, sir.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a need for us to go beyond now. I mean, we cannot be in the status quo mode.
Very true.
That's
Very true.
that's the way I look at. Umar Farooq, good evening. Okay, we also have just for information, Professor Kamal
So he's my
Kinger.
PhD guide, sir. I
So
must,
so
uh,
so you must thank him for actually sparing
I
his
must
time to.
thank him, sir. My CPEC dissertation or my CPEC PhD is under his guidance, sir. And
Okay,
he's been a
okay,
wonderful guide so far, last 4 years, sir.
yeah. Again, is it better that the serious CISC and SIN can be from different services? I think
I
these
think
services
we
are
should rise above
irrelevant.
this service. Ke ek mera, ek
Yeah,
tera. That's, for
services.
formative setting up, we can do it. And we must
Yeah,
trust our government to appoint the best person and leave it there.
and I think by the time an officer reaches that level, he does have that necessary wherewithals, both under him as well as within him, to undertake decisions at whichever level it is required. The jamana is gone when in one of the chief's interview I was told that अगर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कुछ हो रहा है तो ये कैसे हैंडल करेगा. आई थिंक दैट जमाना वो उड़ गया है. वो जमाना अभी अभी सभी लोग सेंसिबल हो गए हैं कि अगर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में कुछ होगा तो उसका एक कंपोनेंट कमांडर होगा उस इलाके के लिए, उस एडवाइजर के लिए, उस एडवाइजरी के लिए, जो उसको
So, to
गाइडेंस
answer
देगा.
Rishi's question, can I narrate a small anecdote, sir?
या या श्योर गो अहेड.
When I was doing the RCDS course, sir, the second referendum on Brexit was taking place.
ओके.
I had a friend from the British Marines, a brigadier, became a major general towards the end of the course. And I asked him, so and so name, doesn't matter, what's your view on Brexit? He said, I have no view. And I badgered him many times over months, sometimes in the office, in a pub, even abroad, कि अपनी धरती माँ पे नहीं बता रहा होगा सही सवाल. I have no view. I said, why don't you have a view? He says, it is crown policy. I have no view on crown policy because otherwise, if I question my crown, I'm a part of my crown, I make it weak. So when I speak to my officers, I would tell them, I said, if I ask you what is your view on farm laws or CAA or this or that, you will wax eloquent. But can we agree that let's not have a view on something which is government of India policy? If the government of India decides this is the best man for the job, cis, sin, whatever, do we have to say, nahi, ek service ka ek hona chahiye? Let's go bigger than that, sir.
This question, I am just showing it for the sake of showing it, but this is something which I think will be a too far-fetched far-fetched option. Is there a chance of a sin can
No, I
from
must
the.
answer this, Rishis. I've dealt with the Coast Guard. It's been under my operational command. The
Yeah,
Coast Guard ships have a 30 gun. That's all. And I'm
yeah,
talking of OPVs with 21-day endurance. So therefore, someone who has not been exposed, without being exposed to nuances of maritime warfare, I put it as my flagged opinion from the Andaman Nicobar Command that the maritime theatre commander must be a naval officer. An extrapolation of that same logic. Someone who's not been exposed to warfare, other than Naval
absolutely.
Academy Azim Allah, how can he aspire to be a maritime theatre commander? Let's understand.
Yeah,
Tomorrow you'll say, can someone from CRPF be the army chief?
absolutely. Once theater command comes up, what will be the role of respective chief? I think this also we have covered it.
Enough in the
It is
domain, sir. We are all aware. Raise, train,
raise
sustain, and
ट्रेन सस्टेन है.
yes,
इस
sir.
पे ज्यादा इस पे
I mean,
ज्यादा
I'm not
हमको.
being dismissive. I'm sorry, Jitendra. What I'm trying to say is that it's well there. Maybe more questions in the time frame could come up in that time.
Yeah, this is why delay in theaterization of modern and future warfare, cyber, AI,
I
IW,
agree
etc.
entirely, sir. It can be done today.
Yeah, yeah.
But let's not, for those HR aspects, make separate cyber command, separate this command. Let's go
No,
the Chinese way.
it has to be the
Have
Chinese
an
way.
integrated command to support the theater. Yes, sir. And we
It has
made a
to be
DGIW at least implement it.
correct, and it has to be the Chinese way. I fully agree with you on this particular aspect. All these resources must be clubbed under one, and thereafter, of course, actually, my view is totally different. I want it clubbed at the national level because these kind of things have more than multiple agencies who will be actually influencing the battle as far as cyber, AI, IW, etc. is concerned. We would
And
also be
Dushyant, sir,
part of.
one point, sir. We
Mhm.
must rise above personalities.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
have you have DGIW vacant, DGTA vacant, Deputy Chief ISNT vacant, DGMO vacant, and 4, 5 appointments like this, and you're not giving people appointments because we are not strengthening our institution. We are having personality-based leadership.
Yeah.
So I think we
Uh,
should not feel professionally insecure and
In fact,
You know what I'm meaning.
I'm going beyond. I'm saying that these issues are actually across agency, not even one agency, not even
Yes,
only the army,
yes,
not only the military. It has connectivity with so many others. So it has to be coordinated at the highest level. That's the way I look at it. And we should become integrated part of that particular agency, whether it is in terms of a support command or strategic support command, whatever way you want to call it. You can name it anything you want to name it. Okay,
sir.
Arun Sagal, good compliment coming from Brigadier Arun Sagal. I think excellent presentation, Ajay. Well enunciated indeed,
Thank you
sir.
very much, sir. Kind of you, sir.
I keep listening to his programs on the Gunner Shot. Thank you, sir, and it's good that you joined us today. Although you joined it because of Ajay,
Thank you, sir.
but it is good that you joined us. Very nicely and logically explained. Thanks, Ajay. It was
Kind
very
of you,
nice.
sir. Thank you very
He's
much, sir.
he's our vice chairman, Major General Chaturvedi, and
Sir,
very learned guy. He's got 5 6 books to his credit. He's actually a water and a Pak and Afghanistan Central Asian expert. He's also a national sportsman. He was the sailors. You would have remembered long time back in your younger days. Asian, I think Asian. Yeah, he's represent the Asia also in sailing. So we got. Uh, he's kind of running our show actually. So thank you very much, sir, for the compliment. This
thank
is
you, sir.
question, sir. Your own views of real integration is contradicted when you back for pro rata appointments. Please clarify. I think that was oh, when you
No,
said when you said
to
when you said that.
Swayam Prakash. Swayam Prakash, what I want to say is that to set something up and going, you need some initial competence. And because the letter of CDS of 21 September says that the first appointees will be from a particular service and they'll make their organogram and their structures. Like if the army is offered the premises of Southwestern Command at Jaipur, and the premises of Lucknow Central Command to set up the Northern and the Western Theatre Commands, then it's only fair that those people who are operating there know what the manpower is, the accommodation is, the other issues connected are. So, to that extent, the setting up is done there. And like I brought out, we must trust our government to appoint the right person. And our services and service chiefs are already putting in place steps that after a few years, we will have joint boards for 2 and 3 star. So, thereafter, like I said, and I gave that anecdote also. So, I think it's understood. Thank you.
Uh, Ajay, we also have a lot of civilians who watch us, who are very keen observers. In fact, they join us on almost हर show में join करते हैं हमको. तो कभी कभी
Sometimes
क्या
their
होता
observations are better because they are bereft of any
है no
uniform color and logic base.
that is one point, but sometimes क्या होता है हमसे भी गलती हो जाती है कि जब हम अपने
That's
उसमें
right. That's
बोलते
right.
हैं, जब हम अपनी लैंग्वेज में
We may
बोलते
not
हैं तो
see the outside picture.
नहीं नहीं कई सारी चीजें हम अज्यूम कर लेते हैं कि इनको समझ में आ जाएंगी, especially abbreviations. So I'm just showing it to you so that these guys also understand कि हम आपकी बात को समझ
I
रहे हैं, अगली
never
बार
showed
से हम
SRO. IW is information warfare.
no I'm just saying
The
कि
new buzzword, DGIW,
senior
DG for
reviewing
information
officer,
warfare.
SRO is senior
Oh,
reviewing
sorry.
officer.
Yes, I did mention. Yeah, the
अगली
defense secretary is the senior.
या सो अगली बार हम
Maybe you
इसको
can explain it, sir,
नहीं मैं
to
यही
Shritik.
बोल रहा हूँ, मैं यही बोल रहा हूँ कि ये सारी चीजें हम ध्यान में रखेंगे. एसआरओ का मतलब होता है सीनियर रिव्यूइंग ऑफिसर, आईडब्ल्यू इज इंफॉर्मेशन वॉर
Three levels
एक्सेट्रा.
of
सो
reporting, जो पहला CR लिखता है, इनिशिएटिंग
जैसे
ऑफिसर
आपका
उसके ऊपर जो लिखता है रिव्यूइंग एंड सीनियर रिव्यूइंग.
जैसे सिविल में होता है फादर ग्रैंडफादर वाला जो वो होता है ना, वो चैनल होता है आपका एडवाइजरी का, या यू डोंट कॉल इट एज एसीआर बट यू कॉल इट एज अप्रेजल रिपोर्ट. तो समथिंग लाइक दैट उसकी बात कर रहे थे वो लोग. एक Fauji Baba Tokchi, sir, in its present form, how has the concern of Air Force about lack of resources been addressed? Will switching of resources between theaters be feasible without turf wars between theater commanders? Yeah, this was a
I think
counterpoint
it's
to
a
our internal
he's a
discussion.
he has a valid point, sir. But like we
Yeah.
brought out today, as per the geographical locations, you have bases which are fixed on ground. In the geographical area of those 5 different geographical air commands, they are managed for administration by those commands. But their employment is under the DG Air Ops for cross command movement. There will be no change to that employment. We are just saying that the DG Air Ops will sit in headquarter IDS instead of sitting in Vayu Bhavan. There's no other
Uh, uh,
change.
अजय, ये पॉइंट
And
कहाँ
there is
से
no
एमिनेट
turf.
अजय, ये पॉइंट कहाँ से एमिनेट होता है? जब हम कभी-कभी स्टेटमेंट्स देते हैं ना, जैसे हमने बोला कि इट्स माय कमांड, आई हैव टू, यू विल आस्क मी बिफोर यू टेक एनी डिसीजंस। सो ही इज रेफरिंग टू दैट, द टर्फ वॉर जो थिएटर कमांडर्स के बीच में चलेगा, तो जो रिसोर्स उसको मिल गए हैं, उसको कैसे हम बांटेंगे? वो इफ ही, स्पेशली इफ ही इज अ 4 स्टार। सो माय टेक ऑन दिस इज दैट till the time we have adequate resources, this particular aspect can be directly given to the CDS and to his
So the
uh, uh,
CDS, with the advice of the service chiefs and the chiefs of staff committee, will be
correct,
deciding what the priority of objectives are and the resources to be allocated. That's how it's done currently as well.
correct. So there are ways and means to get out of this. Turf wars can do
Yes,
only that much and no more, right? So if
very
there
true,
are
sir.
some written instructions, those can be taken care of. Sort out the HR issues, other
I,
issues
I
will come.
agree with Arvind 100%, sir.
No,
He's hit the nail on the head. No wonder he went to Camberley.
I don't want to, now uh, dig old, what do you call, stories, but actually this is also one of the major reasons why we keep having all these discussions and counter discussions.
Yes.
Nobody wants to leave the operational
The hidden
control.
elephant in the room, sir.
Yeah, hidden elephant in the room and the golden thread. Those two phrases I liked a lot. Sir, will theaterization have any clash on the turf war? Again, it's the same thing between MOD and
I don't
MHA
think so.
regarding who calls the shot in certain areas such as LAC. There are reports of a turf war between MOD and MHA regarding LAC. I think he's
I
referring to the
don't.
paramilitary control, etc. You know what Assam Rifle के साथ हो रहा है, and then ITBP के साथ हो रहा है. So BSF के साथ भी है. There are some
That's a
issues of,
separate topic by itself. And yes,
yeah. So actually, MHA MOD war is taking place between the on the lighter side, it is taking place between the IAS of the MOD and the IAS of the MHA.
yeah,
We
yeah.
need
So,
to,
like you see, sir, in the joint headquarters, unified headquarters, Srinagar, there's such wonderful cooperation, sir.
yeah. So
I mean,
so
I've known many 15 corps commanders, and on ground, they have a
my only point is,
functional relationship,
my only point against all this is, Jay, that when I was a corps commander, I had 78 companies of the BSF under me, right?
sir.
But for because I believe that, unless you train yourself for war, you're not going to function well on the last minute, the day you have to actually jump
Exactly.
into it,
Very true.
right?
Very
Uh,
true.
so,
Very
so
true.
if they are under your command, then they can be brought to these exercises, etc., which we keep having regularly over a period of time. And I'm not even saying that have it every 3 months, at least once a year type. Now this doesn't come through if they are under two different ministries.
So
Again,
when
that
we
sign
set our
of,
higher leadership free, when we
sorry.
set them free from the routine, they can address these things. Sir, we've seen, sir.
So
I
what we
can
had to do
honestly share, sir, one more thing you must hear, sir. When I was an MA with an army commander as a colonel in 2005, I used to accompany him, drop him off, vice chief dinner, ye, wo. So I asked him one day, I said, sir, you must be discussing a lot of these strategic warfighting issues. He
uh,
smiled, he didn't answer. For a year, I was a deputy MS with the army commander in Lucknow, sir. I asked him the same question. You can't brush off your deputy MS so easily. So he just
correct.
smiled and said, Ajay, you learn someday. And now I finished 2 years as an army commander. I'm still
Correct.
looking for the fora in which these things are discussed.
Correct. So, the rest of it is all about praises and excellence. So, I'm not going to flash them to you.
Generous of
You know,
whoever, sir.
surprisingly, I would also like to share that my father is also listening to you. He's also an ex
Oh,
Fauji. So he was quite
I
interested. So
hope
I
one
thought,
has lived up to his hopes
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
expectations, sir.
I'll show it to
I have
you.
retired, so,
Very
sir.
informative and fruitful dialogue, right? So
Thank
that
you
was
very
my
much, sir.
father. With that, I would like to end, but with an apology that our initial introduction to General Ajay got cut, but
That's okay, sir.
but let me share with all of you, he is a fifth generation officer from his family. He packs a lot of experience, not only of his, but of his hierarchy. Like I said, his blood is not only OG, but his genes are OG. So, or his genes are military. I would call purple. I would now call it purple because that was the last appointment which and he fights for it with passion. Uh, Thanks to you, General Ajay. I think we will keep troubling you in the future also. I am.
It'll be a pleasure, sir.
I also congratulate you in advance to get your PhD degree and your professor has already seen you. I don't think he needs to see your final briefing, so called, before awarding you the PhD
No, I'll
degree.
still look to him for guidance, sir.
All the best. And with that, let me end the show with with our normal thank you kind of
Thank you, sir.
thank you kind of a